It's not unusual for giant robot shows to give us a few downbeats or tragic romances amid the rock'em sock'em action. But how about a giant robot show featuring a doomed romance between doomed people on a doomed planet, and you'll never guess what that planet is? Welcome back to another episode of the Mecha-May and Mew-Bot show. I'm Mecha-May and this is Mew-Bot. Space Warrior Baldios is a giant robot anime similar to Mobile Suit Gundam, in that it's serious in tone and also a huge bummer. Honestly, one of the biggest bummer endings in anime. Not even the grimmest Gundam title can match up to this. The tagline of the movie is Space Love Romance, but I think Abandon All Hope Ye Who Enter works better. There is one bright side to this, though. Most of the principal characters are so toxic that it feels like they're getting the ending they deserve. The downside is that goes for the rest of humanity, too. But as a little robot girl living in the far reaches of outer space, I'm okay with that. This is a compilation film for yet another show that got canceled, with some new animation and a proper ending. I'm only going to be talking about the movie here, and believe you me, that's plenty. The trailer for the movie makes it look like a tragic Romeo and Juliet in space, but it's more like a profile of hybristophilia on a grand scale, or maybe a precursor to the Max and Maria storyline in Super Dimension Fortress Macross, except in this case, Max and Maria both have severe personality disorders. The film opens with our hero, Marin, looking out at a poisonous sea from inside a lighthouse, where he's joined by a mysterious green-haired girl named Aphrodite, who he instantly falls in love with. Two things are evident in this scene. One, that Aphrodite does not acknowledge Marin's presence even a little bit. And two, there are big differences between animation shot for TV and animation shot for theaters. Since this is a compilation film with some new footage, you're going to be seeing a lot of that second thing. And, well, a lot of the first thing, too, if we're being honest. After the lighthouse, the next time we see Aphrodite is when she's bursting into the chamber of planet S1's Emperor, who she assassinates on orders from a guy called Führer Gatler. So if you were wondering if there was going to be any subtlety or ambiguity in the line between good guys and bad guys in this movie, well, there you are. The story gets started in the uninhabitable planet S1 in the far-flung future, where Führer Gatler performs a hostile takeover because he wants to find a new planet to live on, rather than wait for the Emperor's scientists to fix the environment on S1. This is unfortunate because the scientists have just figured out how to fix the planet, as Aphrodite's little brother comes in and opens fire on the whole room. Turns out the head scientist is Marin's dad, who gets personally shot point blank by Aphrodite's little brother Miran, not to be confused with the hero, Marin. I guess the writers of Baldios only had a few vowels they were allowed to work with. Anyway, Marin comes in and kills Miran in retaliation. Say that 5 times fast. And then the two star-crossed lovers meet. Aphrodite becomes filled with self-righteous fury over the fact that Marin killed Miran. The fact that Miran had killed Marin's father, plus a whole lot of other unarmed scientists, doesn't really enter her mind, because, and this is important to keep in mind, she is a complete psychopath. So Planet S1 literally falls apart, and Marin escapes in his pulsar-burned spaceship, where he gets stuck in a mysterious space warp and winds up on Earth in the year 2100. He's jailed by the Blue Fixer team, an Earth military group that thinks he's a spy because he showed up right before ships from Gatler's military started attacking Earth. Not that any of them know who he is, because it takes them weeks to get around to asking him even basic questions like, who are you and why are you here? So right from the get-go, Earth's odds against technologically advanced invaders aren't looking great. Eventually, the daddy figure commander of Blue Fixer and his head scientist, Dr. Mommy figure, decide to free Marin because they figured out how to make his pulsar-burned ship into part of a robot that can go into hyperspace, where Gatler and his fortress are hiding. So finally, nearly a half hour into the movie Space Warrior Baldios, we get Space Warrior Baldios. The other two pilots, Jack and Rita, are complete dicks who distrust Marin at the start and continue distrusting him all the way through, constantly complaining about having to share a robot with someone they consider an enemy. The team is rounded out by a girl whose role is unclear, other than to be warm for Marin's form, which sucks for her since he's obsessed with Rudolf Hess. Aphrodite. Jamie insists that Marin can't be a spy because he loves nature, and no one who loves nature can be bad. You can tell dude is white because he's got a long pointy nose. It might seem weird to introduce the titular robot so late, but this story really isn't about giant robot action, and it becomes pretty obvious that the robot is just a marketing gimmick, which wasn't a very successful one seeing as how the show got cancelled anyway. As far as this movie is concerned, Baldios is really about the star-crossed relationship between Marin and Aphrodia, which is really something when you consider Aphrodia is basically Heinrich Himmler. Marin's a nice enough guy, but you'd think he's never seen a cute girl with green hair before. Baldios is basically Gundam if they decided to make Haman Karn the romantic lead. Still, you have to understand Aphrodia's tragic backstory. It seems when she was a child, her parents were killed in a car crash, so she had no choice but to become Space Himmler. Whomst among us hasn't lost a parent in a car accident and become a cold-blooded fascist leader? To be fair, she and her brother were apparently also adopted by Gatler, and she has a really weird and creepy relationship with Gatler, so that's probably got a lot to do with it. While all that was happening, Marin briefly returns to his people from S1, then escapes with Aphrodia. Not that she actually consented to that. He takes her to another lighthouse, because that's his thing, and while unconscious, she dreams that she's not a psycho and runs around on a beach in what appears to be an ad for a douche spray. Immediately upon waking, she comes to two realizations. One, she doesn't especially want to kill Marin, at least not while he's sleeping, and two, the shocking twist. Earth is planet S1! S1 is Earth! We finally did it! You maniacs! You blew it up! Damn you! And so on. Now in custody on Earth, most people at the Blue Fixer base want to kill Aphrodia, which is understandable, seeing as how most of the rest of humanity's dead, in large part thanks to her. Luckily, Professor Mommy Figure wants to torture her for information first, then kill her. Cold. But I get it. Professor Mommy Figure also figures out that Earth is actually S1's distant past, and she is surprisingly grim in her assessment of the odds of turning this whole thing around. Surprisingly grim. But I get it. Aphrodia escapes, because of course she does, and once again faces off against Marin in another fight to the death that is once again interrupted by a big metal thing falling on her from out of nowhere. As usual. It is at this point that the Blue Fixers realize there's nothing left for them to do on Earth, so they fly off into outer space in their base, because apparently their base was a spaceship all along. Who knew? On the base, Marin looks out from behind some railing, because when he can't find a lighthouse, railing on a spaceship deck will have to do. Marin barely knows Aphrodia, and the only time they talk to each other is when they're about to face off in a battle to the death that always gets interrupted. So Marin reads things into Aphrodia that really aren't there, starting with his assumption that she was in the lighthouse back on planet S1 because she loves the ocean. Anyway, Gatler's military starts pummeling Earth, and despite the fact that they seem to be winning in their attempts to whittle down humanity, the leadership starts falling apart with some generals wanting to nuke the Earth, which even Gatler thinks is stupid, as it defeats the whole purpose of conquering the planet for their own habitation. Melting the Arctic cap seems to be doing a fine job of laying waste to the life currently occupying Earth, but luckily, the brilliant minds in charge of Blue Fixer are on top of it. No shit, Dr. Sherlock. While Blue Fixer planned their final attack, Führer Gatler makes a very comical attempt at stopping his nuttiest general from nuking the entire planet, which he wants to do for reasons that are very unclear, other than that he just wants to nuke something. It does sound kind of fun. Gatler fails and actually makes things worse and finally realizes he's the a-hole who turns the Earth into unlivable S1 in the first place. While the Blue Fixer base in Baldios attempt to destroy Gatler's fortress, Marin goes to the fortress to try to kill a totally unapologetic Gatler, but who should show up to mix things up but Aphrodia, who not only survived getting smushed by falling spaceship parts, but even has a brand new outfit. Time for her and Marin to once again have it out, because of how star-crossed their loverness is. Who can forget that scene in Romeo and Juliet, where they stab each other in a duel to the death? That's how it ends, right? Gatler, apparently not knowing what kind of story he's in, lets Aphrodia have the honor of killing Marin, but in the absence of any falling objects, she's forced to make a decision. Hey, Führer, maybe don't grab someone by the shoulders and shake them really hard when they're holding a gun in your direction. I think this is called the reverse Eva Braun. Say what you will about Aphrodia, but she is committed to this bit. So, she shoots herself before Marin can stop her, and he flies away with her as Gatler and his fortress warp into hyperspace, presumably to die. Marin and Aphrodia go back to the same beach, which is somehow still extant after all the destruction, and he carries Aphrodia like he's Elmer Fudd carrying Bugs Bunny at the end of What's Opera Dog, where she finally admits that she Oh, never mind. He really doesn't get it. She doesn't care about the ocean, dude. He's going to all this trouble for someone who's largely at fault for the way things currently are. I wonder if he'd act like this if she looked like Herman Goring. So, the movie ends with him carrying her corpse into the ocean. No, just kidding. He's taking her to a lighthouse again. This guy, always with the lighthouses. He should have married Robert Pattinson or Willem Dafoe. This lady didn't care a bit about lighthouses, even when she was alive. Actually, I lied. The movie actually ends with this weird glurge about how humans were all once apes and now they're dead, and we're all connected thanks to the Big Bang Theory. Or maybe it's young Sheldon. I'm not sure. And that's the end of Space Warrior Baldios, as humanity is trapped in an endless loop of causing its own destruction from which it cannot escape. Kinda makes me glad I'm a little robot girl living on a rocket in deep space. There are some fun things about this otherwise downer of a movie. The alien spaceships are kind of cool looking, and for some reason, Soto Gatler looks like the captain in C-Lab 2021 in a Superman cape. That's fun, right? Some of the new scenes shot for the movie look nice, too. This was made in 1981, when the giant robot genre was maturing along with its audience, and so instead of goofy Monster of the Week shows like Mazinger Z, it was experimenting with more thoughtful, serious storylines, and putting more of a focus on human relationships. It's easy to goof on Baldios, and how its reach exceeds its grasp, but it should be respected for trying something new, even if that something new was a female romantic lead who's a literal, unrepentant fascist. I made the comparison earlier, but it feels like Marin and Aphrodia may have been influences for Max and Miria in the much more successful series Super Dimension Fortress Macross. Except, Miria actually does like Max. Or hey, maybe I'm totally off base here and it's just a coincidence. Let me know in the comments if you think I'm off my rocker here. If you find your interest in Baldios piqued, it was recently released on DVD by Discotek, so you can check it out for yourself. Either way, Mew-Bot and I will be back soon with another video. So until then, take care of yourself and each other.